back here on the podcast. I have with me today Franco, Catholic musician, and does also apologetics, so just like talks about the faith, does other appearances, and has a podcast of his own. And I'm looking forward to talk to him a little bit and learn about what he does. So welcome, Franco.
Thank you for letting me on the show, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. So if you can, yeah, kind of like what if you can mention a little bit like of your background, like what uh, led you into music and being kind of like a spokesperson for, um, like the Catholic faith, like trying to, like talking about that and going out into the culture.
Yeah, for sure. What led me into music? It's kind of a funny story. It's also a little dumb, but I mean, here we are now. I first started to dance. Like I liked to do freestyle dancing for a while when I was in high school, and one of my uncles told me all you need to do is just sing now, and you're Michael Jackson. And I'm like, I don't know if that's that quick like that, but sure. I'm like, yeah, maybe I could do something like that, right? And then that's where I decided. I'm like, yeah, I do want to kind of I want to try like making some music. I do like music a lot, so I do want to try making some, right? And then from there, senior in my high school year, I started making some beats. I didn't even start using like any professional softwares for music. I just used this editing program that I used because I also began video editing back in high school. I was really into cinematography. I was really into film for like the later 3 years of my high school experience, or like majority of my high school time. And yeah, that's where I really developed a lot of the stuff there. I was hugely introverted, so I was like, okay, yeah, great, let's get into music. I got into it. I really was inspired by The Weeknd and Michael Jackson. Those are like two of my favorite artists of all time. Although recently now I have kind of been cutting down on a couple favorite artists of mine because of the stuff that they sing about. As I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And yeah, from there, I just started making some like a lot of that sort of stuff. I got yeah, that's pretty much how I got into music.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And then you're also performing in Catholic Palooza, right?
Yes,
You're on the
sir.
lineup.
Yes, sir. You guys have to show. You guys got to come out. We got to be performing at Catholic Palooza. It's going to be a wonderful time.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, then what is so what kind of came first as far as like were you kind of like passionate about your Catholic faith first and then the music came in later, or was it like the music first and the Catholicism kind of came in a little bit after that?
Yeah, so the Catholicism definitely came in way later. And honestly, I wish that had come sooner because I made a lot of mistakes with my music that came back to bite me when I reverted back to Catholicism. It wasn't God's fault. It was simply the fact that, humans have free will, and I really just didn't know much about the faith. I also wasn't instilled the faith when I was younger either. So that just goes to show that, more reason for us to go and evangelize others so that, like, they don't screw up so hard in their life. And then they're like, oh, wait, I could have been saved through a lot of screw ups by just coming into the Catholic faith. So that's more reason for why we should keep evangelizing more into the culture. But yeah, I first started making music when I was very secular. Then I got into Christianity, and then later I reverted to Catholicism.
Okay, so you're a revert, you're not a convert, so you were born Catholic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So similar I have a similar story. So I also I'm cradle Catholic, my family's Polish, but I also, I mean, for me, it was more of a cultural thing. And then at some point, I had, when I went to college, like most people, because it's basically I don't know, it's like they just grind people away from the faith in there. But
Yeah.
I stopped going to mass in a little bit, and I kept carrying what I say, like the dead body of Catholicism with me. And so, um, at some point what I went through, I basically had to really think about of like, okay, I'm either actually Catholic, right? Or I can't just keep carrying this body around with me if I'm not
Yeah.
celebrating with it. And then the more I read about it, I just was like, this is completely true. Like there's no way this is not real. And I'm definitely one of the guys that first started like Jordan Peterson for me was one of the first people that kind of ignited that a little bit in me into like looking more into depth with it, which eventually led me to read like Saint Augustine and Teresa of Avila and things like that. So um, it seems like it's a pretty common uh,
Story. Yeah.
story.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Jordan Peterson was also part of my story as well. I mean, like, not too heavily. Like, I liked a lot of like the stuff he said. I mean, I ordered his book, 12 Rules for Life. I never finished it. I don't think I even went past the first chapter. But I still was like, I did like a lot of his stuff, especially his debates. But yeah, no, it was from there that I got introduced to other figures that were not very left leaning, and from there, I got into politics, yeah, and Christianity, then the whole ballgame.
Yeah, so why do you think that's important? Like why do you do this? Like I mean, you have a pretty good social media following, you post this kind of things all the time. Social media in general is a pretty secular space. Like
Yeah.
why do it?
Well, I have a hard time shutting up. I just have a really hard time shutting up. I remember when I was getting into politics at first, before I came to Christianity, I was like, okay, I got my music thing that I'm good that I'm doing, but at the same time, I really want to talk about what's going on in the political sphere, right, and the cultural issues, all that stuff. And because I was like, when I first got red pilled into politics, I was like, why don't more people know about this? Oh my gosh, right? And I just felt like this really strong urge to just speak about it. And I was like, from there I was like, okay, like I gave it went too deep into politics. I need to go back to just making music, right? And I need to kind of shut my mouth. But the more and more I saw a lot of stuff that was going on, I just found it like irresistible to talk about it. I mean, of course I can resist it, sure, but I just found it really, really hard for me to just shut up about it. I just really wanted to talk about a lot of these social things, cultural things, political things. And then from there, I went into Christianity, and that passion transferred. It kept on transferring to wanting to preach the truth. Whenever like the deeper I went into the truth, and so when I reached the pinnacle of truth, which is Catholicism, it just for me it just made sense to just talk about it and make videos about it. And yeah, from there I just think that was like a huge motivation for me. But like, of course, we can talk about the other reasons why it's good to be doing that, for like, even if you don't have the same motivation that I did, right? It's like we want more people. Right now, we're in the age of information. We're in the information age, and that means that like a lot of the stuff that we're going to be learning is mainly going to be from social media. Maybe not from school, maybe not like that's going to be somewhat of your education, but like a lot of the things that you're going to be learning about, especially in the real world, it's going to be coming from social media. So who are you listening to? That really matters. And if you're listening to the wrong sources, that can be pointing you in the wrong directions, because of course your environment does affect like what your ideology is. That's why praying is so important, because when you pray to God, you're hanging out with God, and when you talk to God, right, you're hanging out with Him the most, and you're going to become more godly the more time you spend with Him. And so if you're spending a lot of time listening to other things, other voices that are not from Catholicism, you're really playing like a Russian roulette with like maybe those voices might like, yeah, sure, they might have some things that agrees with the truth that is Catholicism, or there might be a lot of things that go against it, which and of course that's why it's always important to be watchful of that stuff. But yeah, that's essentially, go back to the point, that's what largely why I started doing it, because I just feel like there hasn't been enough outspoken Catholics on social media, especially not enough there's been outspoken priests, sure, but I feel like my generation, there isn't really much of it. Gen Z, there isn't really much of it. And I think that like, Father Mike Schmitz, he's killing that out there. He's doing amazing. And whenever priests make videos online, they do pretty good, which is, I'm like, why don't you do this? Why don't more priests do this? Right? It's like, there should be more priests doing this sort of stuff, right? That can really take over the culture, but you don't really see much of that doing it. Although you're starting to see a little bit more, right? I think Father Sam French, he's recently new onto social media, and I think he's doing an amazing job. But yeah, you just don't see many priests doing it. So of course, lay Catholics, you kind of see them, and like they're starting to push into the mainstream. So I think that really like we want to get our ideas into the mainstream. We want to be able to shift the focus of whatever's going on in the mainstream to Catholicism. We want to evangelize the mainstream, evangelize the social issues, and I think that's like just pretty much a huge reason why we should be doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I it seems like it's definitely like an age of the laity to a certain extent, right? Like
Hmm.
it's we're going back to, in a way, what the apostles were doing when Christ sent them out. In that it's almost like the church is toppled and we're back to square one in a way and bringing people back, except it's a little bit of the reverse where it's like apostatized. Um,
Hmm. Yeah,
but
well, I mean, like, I would say sort of like that, the most definitely. Now, the one thing that I will say is, I think that, um, I one thing about the laity is that, like, of course, we are not clergy. I think that one of the biggest things about Catholicism is that we submit to our leaders, and because obedience is like I think one of the cruxes of Catholicism, if not like it's so intertwined with humility. And so I think that like even though I like to see a lot of lay people doing this sort of stuff, I would like to see as the same amount or maybe more from our leaders because they are our leaders in the church. We should be seeing more of that from them. And given like maybe I think that I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's just like the technology. You know, they're boomers, a lot of them. So, but yeah, I mean, I do think that like yeah, like it is like a lot of like laity that's coming up. But again, the one thing that I always do with my content is whenever I'm like unsure about something, I make sure to get it checked by a priest. And I think every single layperson should be doing that. A lot of people should be doing that when, especially with stuff that's like maybe like on the gray areas of like, you know, with a lot of Catholic debate. I think we should be getting it checked by priests and submitting to that like authority because spiritual counseling, a lot of saints have recommended spiritual counselors. And that's honestly like a great way to get your stuff, you know, make sure it's all good to go.
yeah, and there's, I mean, part of my work, the way I go about it is I try to show that that religion is not far from reality. It's just the highest peak of it, you can
Yeah,
say. So, like brushing your teeth is a ritual just as much as going to mass, you can say, is a ritual, but it's just that the mass is way higher up on the hierarchy than brushing your teeth is.
of
But
course. Yeah.
if you have everything ordered, it all should lead up to the peak, you can say, like the top of the hierarchy, right? Like it's not it, you know, the problem becomes is when you kind of like isolate it and you have it become like an idol, right? Like that's what an idol is. Like you pick something lower on the hierarchy and you put it at the top.
Yeah.
That becomes the problem. And so like I try to show these patterns in a way that, you know, kind of what that you were saying earlier about hearing, like whether you're hearing the true voice or like, you know, lies as you're going through life, and to show that you know, those things are not arbitrary. Like the way your food works, like what you eat, right, is
Yeah.
that pattern is spiritually true too. I mean, you can see it with people. um you know, that's why they say if you give a child anything he wants, he turns into a brat. It's almost like a microcosm of the demonic, in that they become so consumed by their passions because you just let them feed into their passions that they kind of tear up the family.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. So you
but
gotta correct them. You gotta correct them, little brats.
yeah, yeah, so that's what I try to do. But yeah, and so going back, I kind of want to connect this to your little background of your music. So like, how do you think that, you know, obviously there's a role in music and worship, right? Like both, you have the Gregorian chant in the Western rite, and then you also have music, you know, the divine liturgies sung in the Eastern rite, or with the Byzantine Catholics and even in the Orthodox. But how do you think music can serve a purpose in like the secular world? Because it seems right now that the sole purpose of music is just like entertainment. Like it's just solely to make you feel good, right? Like it's almost pornographic in a sense that it's only
Yeah.
about making you feel good, right? But obviously music has other, I would say, like purposes also. So how do you go about that?
I just thought of a really, I just thought of an analogy that I'm not going to say, but maybe you guys can realize the analogy when when I talk about this. So music, right? Yes, it is. It's good because we love music because it makes us feel good. Sure, like that's not inherently bad. But when it's the only thing there, that's when it's bad. When you strip away the fact that you're supposed to glorify God with it. when you I don't know if you guys know. I don't know if you can see like where I'm like the analogy with this, like the equivalence of where it comes to. There's a lot. Okay, anyways, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna say the analogy. It's a little it's a little intimate, but anyways, yeah, I think that music, of course, it's good because we love it because it makes us feel good. But yeah, when we strip away the part of glorifying God with it, that's when it becomes bad. And how can you glorify God with music, right? It's like that doesn't specifically. You don't have to specifically mean like, oh yeah, the song has to be saying, "I worship you, Lord," and all that stuff. It doesn't have to be saying that. You can be expressing. You can be like relating to it with like the love for your wife, or like the love for a creation, right? Or like you're not like like talking about the feelings that you have for a woman, right? Or I don't know, whatever, something like that, right? That's holy, like a pure purpose, and um and that in a sense could be glorifying to God. You don't have to specifically make it so explicit, I would say, because of
Hmm.
course a lot of the masses, a lot of the people in society, they're not. I don't see a song saying "Go to confession" unless it's like a meme hitting the top Billboard charts. I see a song like Michael Jackson's "The Way You Make Me Feel" hitting the Billboard charts. Right? It's very vague. It doesn't really go too deep into like this. It's not like it's very vague, right? It can appeal to any audience. However, that's not to demotivate you guys and say like, okay, yeah, you can't make it unless you're talking. You can't make it if you're talking about God. No, that's definitely not what I'm saying either. What I'm saying is that you can be optical enough to be able to make music that still glorifies God very subtly and a lot, and you can still appeal to a large audience. I think there is a way to do that, and I think that a lot of artists, especially a lot of Christian artists, they kind of go into the route of making explicitly Christian music, which is good. I definitely like think it's amazing. I think it's great. I think it's a great type of music. The lyrics are amazing. I most definitely think that it's like great things. However, um, we're not. I don't think we're going to take over the culture that way because again, the culture is increasingly getting more secular, and that's just when people are hearing those lyrics, and especially if it sounds corny sometimes, they're not really going to be like putting that on in like in a party or sense or whatever, right? Um, now, whereas if you were to make it more optical and put it in like a subtle message, right? So like if they're listening to it, they don't really realize that they're getting evangelized, but when you look into it, they're like, wow, the way that this person talks about this woman is such a gentlemanlike way. Like the thing he talks about in this relationship, he talks about it through such a cool, like pure and like very psychological way. Like where does he get all this from, right? And then you look into that artist's beliefs, and you're like, that's where he gets it. That's where he gets it from. Dang, okay. Like it's like you can see like the optical manner that you can go about it. Now, of course, that's not going to be for everybody. Some people want to be straight up explicit about making Christian music, and that's great. Again, that's great. However, that has a role to play. Just how people that want to be subtle about it also have a role to play. And I think that I fall in the latter essentially.
I see. Yeah, I mean, you have someone like Dan from Hallowed that does. I mean, his lyrics are pretty explicit, but there's something catchy about his tunes that I even had some of my secular friends listen to it and start kind of like singing along. So like I did the music video to his song Saint Catherine Sienna, and I even
Mm.
had one of my most secular friends like singing like take a bath, it's a mortal sin, right? But in his mind he had no idea what he was necessarily singing. But at some point, like you said, it might lead him to ask the question of like, what does that mean? Like, where does that come from? Or like, like, yeah, what does that meaning of those lyrics
Yeah,
come from?
like the take a bath. You smell like mortal sin. Like I would classify that as like being subtle about like the faith, right? It's not explicit, and also like it's also like explicit in the sense of like the mortal sin, right? Like that's like somewhat explicit in that sense. But in the explicit part, he said the phrase, the way he wrote it is in such a clean, non-corny way. Like it sounds cool, right? And it's like kind of like it's kind of funny, if you think it could be a joke, right? But it's like it sounds very, very smooth. It's very smooth, right? It doesn't sound like it's forced. Like you take a bath, you smell like mortal sin. That goes hard. That goes so hard. It's like, yeah, of course any secular would want to be like, would find that like catchy and like want to sing to that, right? And it's because he made it sound very smooth. I think if we want to make explicit stuff like that, we got to make it start sounding smooth if we want to get into culture.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that we need to tap into like it's tapping into the stories, like the meaning of what it does. I think sometimes, particularly in the Western right, we get so caught up in the actuality of things or the literal or something like that that we brush away kind of like the mythology of it a little bit. But that kind of language helps us like express a higher truth without being too forensic, you can say, about it. So I mean, even Revelation is written in like a mythological way, and it's outlining kind of like what an apocalypse could look like. And so um by the take a bath, you smell like mortal sin, for example, is something, is it comes from the, you can say, the mythology or the telos behind Saint Catherine of Siena, which he titled the song after, right? And
Mhm.
so not you're not Dan, obviously, so I don't want to talk about too much about his music. So how do you so what inspiration, I guess, do you draw from when you create music? And do you just take certain topics, like maybe like sin, and sing, like expand on that and sing about that, or and create your lyrics that way? Or like, yeah, how do you go about the
I actually don't start on a topic until I have like gone somewhat under development with the melody actually, because I just like a melody. I'm like, this goes hard. I want to keep building on this, right? And then once I have like the melody built and all that stuff, I'm like, dang, I like this. I like how this sounds. All right, what feeling does this produce? Right. Then from there, I'm like, okay, what lyrics could fit this? Right. It's more like the lyrics fitting the song, than the song, like the lyrics fitting the melody, than rather than like trying to get the melody to fit the lyrics. For me at least, I just first start with the melody and then try to see like what lyrics can fit that. That's pretty much how I do it.
Oh, that's the way I edit. I basically start with the music track and then find the rhythm of my like film or video based on that music track. So,
Yeah.
usually they tell you, like, when you go to school, they tell you that the music is secondary, but I usually start with it first, especially when it comes to like documentary style stuff or even music videos. I do with the music first, and then I try to find the rhythm with the clips.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, with that, you mentioned that you started off a little bit in the film world yourself back in high school. Um, and what's it called? Do you still work on that a little bit? I mean, really,
Definitely.
your stuff in general looks great. You can see that you have a high production quality with your podcast setup and things you do. So, um, how does how do you
Yeah,
tie
well,
all that in?
I would say the podcast stuff is like this like the tip of the iceberg. I've been shooting some music videos for a few guys right now. Like I did this I actually just shot one literally last week for one of my friends from work who makes music. And we're doing like an exchange of labor. So like, I help him out and he helps me out shoot some music stuff for my stuff, right? Pretty much exchange of labor. So that's like what we've been doing right now. And yeah, no, I love it. I love making film stuff. Although personally, I wish I could like have somebody to help me out with that stuff because I'm just so busy. I need to actually make the music itself. I'm getting so busy with like the podcast stuff and like my work and some other side jobs and whatever that I need to like more. I'm starting to be like, okay, yeah, I need to delegate some tasks to other people. And so yeah, no, I love making film. I think it's absolutely amazing. And I love shooting it as well. However, at the same time, that isn't my priority. So like if I were to pick between music or film, I would pick music. Um and yeah, because I just definitely think that like the music aspect is great. Although I would be very selective of who I choose to help me make the music. Like you would be like, Pat, like your stuff's amazing. Like I would love like I would love to work with you. But like, like I've seen some other music videos that look a little crusty from other people, which I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to make sure that I have good control over my stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, by the way. That I
No, for sure.
appreciate that. Um, yeah. Do you have, um, yeah. So in terms of the music world, do you have anyone that you draw influences or you inspire from? And also visually, when talking about music videos or even films, who do you draw from in the film world? Also, like, what are some of your influences from what people?
Well, on the music aspect, I would
I
say
know
Michael. Michael Jackson, The Weeknd, and Gesaffelstein. I don't know how to say pronounce his
Yeah.
name. I'll say those are the three main guys that I get a lot of influence from, although I don't listen to them that much because, of course, the music being, etc., the lyrics being a little, maybe not so recommendable. But yeah, I definitely like the sound, the melody, right? Like I believe, of course, all good things come from God, even if the artist decides to put in some sinful lyrics on it. Like still the music, the reason why it sounds so good is because it comes from God. So like, these things that I try to get the instrumentals or tune, analyze the vocals or whatever, or like the melody of the vocals without without letting it influence my brain. Which I do that rarely now because I don't, again, I don't like to listen to that, listening to sinful stuff into my ear. But yeah, I definitely get a lot of influence from those three. I would say, yeah, those are like the three main guys that I get my influence from. Now with film, I don't make any like short films. I did some when I was back in high school, and I think a little bit in college. But nowadays, right now, I'm not making any short films anytime soon. And I don't think I'd look at anybody as like a inspiration. An inspiration. I think I just like if I like the way a music video looks one time, or if I need like some guidance on like a music video, I just like look at some other music videos that went viral or whatever. And I'm like, okay, how did they made it look cool? I think I want to do something similar to that or whatever, and like make it my own. I don't know, stuff like that. I don't really take much inspiration. I like for example, when we started doing the music video for Levi Scented Lust and for I Love You Eternally, I got with a group of people and we were like writing the script for that stuff. And then from there, after we finished the script of how it's going to be going, we kind of visualized some scenes of like certain parts where the song was, and then from there, I was like, okay, I'm going to start kind of storyboarding the each shot that we were going to do. And so that's, Levi Sent to Lust, that was probably like the heaviest part that I did for storyboarding that every single time I did. Like I just wrote down, I storyboarded it in words. I didn't storyboard by drawing. I storyboarded by words. I'd be like, okay, it'll be a meteor shot with this and this and this, right? And then boom.
So like a shot list. Yeah.
Yeah, like a shot list, essentially. Yeah, a shot list. And I translated that into because I was directing it, I translated that into directing the camera guy to be able to shoot what I had in mind, essentially. And that's essentially what I was able to do with the shot list. So that's I don't really, yeah, it's not as if I take that much inspiration from people unless you're talking about like basic film stuff like low angles and medium shots and like what are high angles or whatever and when to use them or whatever, right? Like that stuff I learned in high school when they were talking about the basics of film. But apart from that, I kind of see it as like a tool, right? I kind of see it as like once you know the basics, you can take it anywhere. But yeah, no, but the inspiration, I know a lot of people get some inspiration from other filmmakers. Me, again, film's not really my main thing. It's like it's one of my main things, but not like the utmost priority in my stuff.
Yeah, I was just curious. I asked film in general because I was just
Yeah,
wondering if you also. I know some musician, like even music artists, like I don't know, they use like a visual or another form of art, and they kind of try to express that through sound in a way or something like that. So I wasn't sure
for sure.
what the
Yeah, yeah.
process was with that. What's your opinion? Because now it's pretty huge of like using AI in terms of art, right? So you have people making images and stuff using art. Then ChatGPT came out. Now you see more and more kind of like video clips and stuff of AI making like Bud Light commercials or pizza commercials, and at some point, I'm sure if it hasn't been done already and I just missed it, like music. What's your opinion about like all this?
I have a little bit of a hot take on this. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, let's hear it.
I think that AI art, I think it's great. I think that we should be using it. I think that we should be abusing it, actually. Maybe not abusing it, but we should be using it to our own advantage. Because, like, once the technology has been made, sure, we can argue about like how it would have been ideal to, snip the problem right before it developed into like what we see nowadays. But guess what? We didn't. It's now here. What are we gonna do now? Complain or use it? What are we gonna do? And I think that and I don't like to complain. I like to find solutions. And for me, if we want to evangelize the culture and we want to be more highly productive with it, AI is a great way to go. I personally don't use AI because I don't know how to use it, and and I think some of the like the professional programs cost money. But I definitely think that like it once we learn how to use it, that's absolutely you have a superpower right there. I have a friend who uses Mid Journey. This is AI where it creates a lot of images, and he pays for it, and it helps him out a lot in his YouTube videos. It looks like it looks not music videos, sorry, in his YouTube videos, and it looks really good. It looks really like it's a compelling, it's really good stuff, and he's a Catholic and he's absolutely using it to the best advantage. So I think that it can be used for a lot of things. Now, of course, yeah, it's taking away jobs. I totally understand that. However, I don't want to say I don't care about that. Like I do care. Like I don't like the fact that it's taking away jobs. Like sure, like that's unfortunate, but it's this is where I would be like, I'm still debating this in my head. I'm like, okay, if we're talking about like the jobs getting taken away, if we had the chance, would we should we ban it? I think that if I had the chance, I probably would ban it. But while it's not banned, I would say like use it to your advantage. Um, but yeah, no, I don't know. I haven't thought too deep into like whether we should ban it or not. However, while it's here, use it. Definitely use it. And also just so I can give you guys some light at the end of the tunnel. AI art. It's not as if it's like it's the end all be all and like you're done for. There's a lot of things that the AI can't do that the human mind can. Again, it's AI. It's a machine. It's not human. It's not divinely designed by God. It's humanely designed by us. So like like a specific shot that you want to do with like using a certain way of how you want to do it with the lighting, you know, set in a specific way or whatever, right? You're only going to be able to do that with your brain. You're not going to be able to do that with AI. Maybe you can try to get as close to it, but it's not gonna be as close. It's not gonna be like the real deal. And so that's the light at the end of the tunnel right there. Like for people that are complaining about, you know, the AI arts that the AI images that are replacing their art. It's like, well, guess what? The AI can't meticulously plan out every single thing the way that you want it to look like. You can only get as close to it by just telling the computer some things, right? So I think that is some light at the end of the tunnel, especially if you make film. You know, Pat, and then you make film. You probably can start guessing and visualizing what exactly you yourself can do that AI can't do.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think it's appropriate to use AI, let's say, to make liturgical art? Like, let's say it was a stained glass windows at churches or something, or icons or
Sure.
images. Do you think it's appropriate to use AI to make those, or what's your opinion
As long
about
as
that?
the AI doesn't make anything sinful, if it makes like one of the holiest things imaginable, or like one of like if it like makes such a beautiful, because the thing about art is that again, art, music, it's also there to glorify God, right? So if you're glorifying God, then the means I don't think matter as long as the ends are there. I think that's like a lot of things that a lot of people might disagree with me there. You know, like, well, the
Yeah.
means are, you know, like the means. What about the means or whatever, right? It's like, yeah, as long if the means are satanic, yeah, don't do it. But if the means are there's nothing sinful about them and the ends are glory to God, then I don't see an issue with it. I think that if it creates such a wonderful piece of art that can bring a lot of atheists or seculars into the church because of just how beautiful it looks. Again, all good things come from God. So the tools that we use, whether it be artificial intelligence to do that, I don't think that really matters much if the end product is going to be evangelizing.
Hmm. Interesting. I think I slightly disagree with you in that I think participation between people is very important. So
Mm.
you mentioned something about taking away jobs, which that's one way to look at it. But just in general, of just like me working with another individual, let's say a graphic designer that I need an image or something, that it builds a relationship and you can build community around that a lot easier.
Oh
And
yeah.
now, I feel like AI cuts that relationship building out and it further kind of like secludes us into our own bubbles because it's like that effect almost in um like in I don't really like the whole series myself, but I think it's a good visual representation of like in Harry Potter when he was writing in the book, right? And like asking this thing questions on the other side. Like that's what I view almost AI in that he's participating with something and he doesn't know what, right? Like I don't view AI. So a lot of people look at AI in a perspective of like it being intelligence, but
Mhm.
I think we're the intelligence. The AI is more like power, right? And
Mhm.
so that would it's so like it's to me it's like Sauron, right? And it's looking to grab our intellect so we can build it a body at some point in a way, right? Like it's like that same story in Lord of the Rings where Sauron didn't have a body and he was like the representation of absolute power, and he would tempt people with his power of like with that ring, right? Like that's why everyone wanted to put it on and use it against him and stuff like that, but they always failed. And the goal was that to eventually bring it back to him so he can get his body back. And to some extent, I view that with AI too. Now, the mysterious part is, I agree with you too, because I think there is an aspect of it that can be used for good. Like, I think there is a redeeming quality behind it for sure. I
Mhm.
think I just think we're going about it a little backwards first. We're thinking about like, oh, let's we made this powerful thing, but we're not wise. Like our culture in general lacks wisdom. Like I'm sorry to say that, but like
That's
and,
true.
and so now you have this thing that's powerful, right? This thing that has power, and then we're like, oh shoot, we're creating something, but we lack like wisdom. and so
That's a good
and
point.
and
That's a good
so
point.
and so if it was the reverse, like if we were wise first and then built the AI, that would be a different story. I mean, you see that in like the story of Solomon, where God basically asked him to make a like what he wanted, and he asked for wisdom. And then after he got wisdom, he built the temple. But like we're going about it in reverse, where we're building a temple, and then we're like, oh no, we build a temple to Lucifer, right? Because we lack wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why only the Pope should be allowed to use AI. That's it. No one else. That's it. Listen, I'm not egotistically tied to the idea of using AI. So like if you present like that's a good reason like you just gave me like the fact that like people can that like the fellowship of brothers and sisters in Christ for making art can get stripped away when using AI. Yeah, that's a negative. I definitely say that as a negative. So I think that like if you're if it's used in replacement, if you're gonna if some people are gonna use that in replacement to making works of art that can be done together, yeah, definitely I would discourage that 100%. And I think that like the point of like yeah like AI art being used by unwise people, like yeah, like there could be AI art that can be used for simple things, maybe like making pornographic material or other simple stuff. So I think that in that sense, yeah, that stuff is most definitely should be banned. Most definitely. Now, when it gets into the gray area of like, okay, should this person be doing the art in the computer, like even if it's a for a holy purpose, or doing art for with people, like that stuff gets into more of like okay, more debate into that. Although I personally lean strongly for like, yeah, no, if it's gonna be either by yourself or with other people, I definitely think you should be doing it with other people. But then again, I personally like to work by myself a lot because I just like I like having complete control over what I am doing. So that's personally for me like why I can kind of sympathize with the other side at the same time. Like, well, you also want to be able to get a good amount of fellowship from other people, right? So I think there's some sort of balance that can be had there. But yeah, but I wouldn't be opposed to banning AI and only having the Pope use AI. I would not be opposed to that. I think that would be a wonderful idea. I would not care.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some things in this world where like it's easy to say like why don't we just stop fighting in terms of like not having wars, right? But
Yeah.
it just happens. I think AI is the same pattern. I mean, you can't just turn it off, unfortunately. I think it's happening, and it's going to go the direction it's going to go, so we're going to have to see
Mm.
how it plays out. um but yeah.
By that
uh
time, I'll be dead. I'll
Well,
be
we hope
dead.
so. It's been moving pretty fast. Like, for first there was just the pictures, and then next thing you know, there was already like deep fakes with Trump and things like that. So
Oh, those
it's
are
it's
yeah.
and so it seems like it's moving quickly. I've heard some people say that this might be our last like human election, because all the other ones are gonna be all like in the future, it's all just gonna be a battle between AIs.
Well, I mean, they're already well, I don't know if you're gonna post this on YouTube, but they're already doing something with the elections that you know, we could get into. But I don't think that's very YouTube friendly.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, uh,
I don't
it's
know where you're
definitely
standing.
interesting.
I don't know where you stand on that, but yeah.
In terms of what?
In terms of the election stuff.
Oh, I mean, I'm definitely a conservative, and what's it called? I'm definitely um, what's it called? I don't agree with what the left and stuff has been doing at all. I think it's I don't even think it's the left. I think it's revealed to be definitely more of a satanic movement in everything that they do. Like the patterns are all there, and
Yeah,
so
I meant more specifically what the left is doing with the machines that count the
oh
votes.
yeah, no, I mean but that's I mean that's a perfect view of what to like how see like our faith is incarnational, right? It's like even it's between relationships with people and building community. Like that's why the like one of the root like visual representations of that is marriage, right? Because you see when people come together it gives life, right? And then same thing with community, like the cities and having an identity and stuff. Like that's what Christianity is. And so if you look at the satanic at the end of the tunnel is a robot, like it's death. There's nothing there. It's inanimate objects. Like that's what it's I mean that's what I mean with the patterns. That's what it's all there. So
Yeah,
um yeah, that's something that really drives me, or not drives me, that but I find something really beautiful about is the incarnational element of our faith that I think people sometimes forget or take advantage of.
yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, our faith is very incarnate. That's why all the sacraments that we do, they're all literal. They're, baptism is not some symbol. It's literal. You're literally getting reborn right there. Body of Christ. It's incarnate. Everything there is incarnate. It's like that's a huge thing. Our faith is not blind.
It's even with the Eucharist, right? Like that's why the Eucharist is so important because it's like the very incarnational element, like the story of all stories, like the meaning of all things, the being of being, the I am. We get to eat it, right? Like we get to participate in and touch it and make it a part of us, right? It's there. And so that's the beauty of it, right? And I think sometimes that's what frustrates me about, for example, something like obviously Protestantism is that there's an element of that they're afraid of having the Bible live outside of the Bible, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
like even when you look at something like Comic-Con, like you read a story and then you participated on the outside of the world, right? So people dress up as superheroes and blah blah blah, and then they go to Comic-Con and they celebrate it together. And in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, we do something similar where we have the family of the communion of saints and the whole story, and we get to live it at Mass.
Yeah.
And it once again is that incarnational element to it. But for some reason, secular people and both Protestant and stuff, like when it comes to the Bible, they just want to lock it up in that book and not have it exist anywhere else. It's just like this thing of arbitrary rules, and I don't want to follow. You either follow them or you don't, and it's up to everyone whether they want to follow them or not, right? And but
Mm-hmm.
that's not how the world works. That's why you have people participating with Satanism.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally the
Yeah.
case. Yes, essentially. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah. And then, I mean, to kind of slowly start wrapping up here, but, one more question I had is kind of um, where where are you at kind of in your faith journey right now? Like, is there anything in particular? Have you been exploring a new like realm maybe of the Desert Fathers, or what are you kind of like exploring and in now?
Well, right now I'm exploring my vocation. I am discerning right now, so I definitely don't. I'm staying away from dating. I am staying away from that stuff right now. Um, Oh, I'm not gonna lie, it's very, very tempting because there's a lot of beautiful women out there. But yeah, right now I am discerning, and I think that I definitely want to. I think I'm taking like a month. I'm taking like about a month and yeah, about a month. Just I haven't started yet. I've been a little slacking on that. That's the thing. But yeah, I'm thinking of taking a month to like really discern, pray, really see what the Lord wants from me. Because I think I might be getting called to marriage, but I just want to be completely sure that like, yeah, God's not calling me to priest or whatever. And if He is, well, then we'll see. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm really open to it. I'm like, okay, yeah, what's God calling me to? I'm not. It's not as I don't think that I fear any specific vocation. I think that like I'm really just open to it, but I just want certainty in what I will be going to. So that's really what I'm praying. I'm going to be praying for. I'm exploring that. I'm also exploring the Eastern rites, and by exploring it, I mean very slackingly because I haven't really made a total like effort into it. But it's in the back of my mind. I'm kind of like, yeah, I like the Eastern rite a lot. I think that I might want to be Eastern Catholic, maybe. I don't know. It's nice, but same time, yeah, I'm exploring. I'm trying to find my identity.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've I've actually really deeply delved into the Eastern Rite myself. I've been kind of in discernment whether I want to follow more of the Eastern Rite opposed to the Western Rite. So
Mm-hmm.
if you ever have, um, I mean, the best people would to ask would definitely be the priest there. But if you ever have
Yeah.
any questions and stuff from the perspective of like a lady or someone that's been exploring it too, I'll be glad to answer any questions. But
Awesome. Thank you,
me,
man.
but yeah, me personally, there's part of me that just feels not. See, when I say this, I don't want to make it sound like I think the West is wrong. I just think, in my perspective, I just think like that the East is closer to the truth than the West is the way I'm going to put it.
Uh huh.
And so that's just the way I feel. But I mean, I grew up Polish, and so Polish is a super Western country. I mean, I don't think they have many Byzantine rites there in general. I think it's pretty much all Roman Catholic, and so
Really?
that's something that I've been kind of struggling with because I think how you participate with your family and stuff is important. And so like I don't want to be the one person that switches it up on everybody else to a certain extent, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like that's why. And it also led me to have a little more empathy for Protestants too, because if I'm having such a hard time, you can say hard time with such a like almost like minor decision, more switching rights, but still living the truth. I can't imagine of like completely leaving something and going to something else. Not that you shouldn't, but
Yeah.
I sympathize with that decision
Yeah. For
for
sure. For
sure.
sure. I think that like what to think of it in a humble way. Like I think I heard this Eastern Catholic talking about it. Talking about like masses and stuff like that. It's like where if you're gonna switch a mass, don't blame the mass for don't blame the mass for your switch. Blame yourself because it's like one can be either it's like identify that you were weak and like and that's kind of like what I felt as well. I thought that I was like being like, oh yeah, I can't find reverence in a specific type of liturgy or whatever. But then and I was like, I need to go to the Latin mass or like the Byzantine mass or whatever. But then I was like, okay, yeah, it's kind of like the arrogant lens. I think I should be more saying like, okay, I couldn't find reverence in this sort of mass, and I need more to be able to get. I need more to be able to find reverence. Um, so I think there's a humble way that we can look at it, right? It's like, yeah, we might be attracted to the Eastern Mass, or if they're Eastern Catholics that are attracted to the Western Mass, or sorry, Western Rite, or Western Catholics that are attracted to the Eastern Rite, vice versa, whatever. It's like it's not as if, like you said, it's not as if one rite is better than the other, but it's just the fact that like preference, we do have preferences, and sometimes, yeah, it's not as if there's something wrong with the rite, but it's more that there's something wrong in us that we just are drawn more to that, and like that just aids us better. Pretty much, it aids us our spirituality better.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Mm.
So yeah, to close out, where can people, if they're interested in listening, like hearing more from you or listening to any of your music that we talked about, like where can they follow you and be part of what you're doing?
So my music stuff and my Catholic social influencing stuff are on two separate accounts for all social medias. But I will redirect all of you to my Catholic account, and from there, it's pretty it's very very. I show it in all my bios, like where they can find my music. So, but just to make it simple, my Instagram for my Catholic influencing stuff is the Franco TV. And my music stuff is the Franco Radio. So go follow that. Go follow my Instagram. I mainly am more active on Instagram than other platforms. But yeah, my YouTube, you'll be able to find my YouTube on either of those Instagram bios. So yeah, go check those out. If you want to go to my website and check me out, all the stuff that I have there, it's francoaurelio.com. Pat, you can put that down in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much all my stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming and talking to me for an hour. Hopefully maybe we can get together and talk about some other stuff soon.
Yeah, this was fun. This was fun. Thanks for having me on, Pat.
Yeah, no problem. All right.
Take care.
If you enjoyed the content here on my channel, please like and subscribe. And if you would like to learn more, I have a blog on my website where you can learn more about symbolism, as well as short form videos and articles on my Instagram page. Thank you for listening, and I hope you tune into the next one.